Hey guys, this is going to be kind of like a little bit of an interesting scope for me. So, hey guys, how's it going? So a little bit of an interesting scope for me. I normally have, hey Gaming Granny, how you doing? I normally have my scopes, I don't normally, but I really try to have my scopes lined out. So it's very concise, you get your points, you're able to take the message with you and go forward. But today I just kind of wanted to have like a loose conversation with you kind of, on the topic of fear. And I think I wanted to get this out because I wanted you all to be able to maybe see something in yourself that can help you, yeah. So if you know that you have some friends who might benefit from the topic of fear, again, it's not going to be as concise with points laid out as I normally do. I would really appreciate it if you would share it with your followers or share it with your Twitter community. And hey, Pella, how's it going? That's awesome. I love fellow Iowans on Periscope. You lost 2 decades. It's so easy to lose time to being afraid or being paranoid or whatever. It can be overwhelming and life consuming. So if you guys know anybody that would benefit from it, hello Mexico, then please share it with your Twitter followers or pass it on along, and we'll get started here shortly and talk about a little bit about fear. A lot of this material is kind of inspired from a book that I am not reading, but I am in the car 2 hours a day when I go to work. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, I am in the car for 2 hours or more, 2.5 hours, depending on traffic. And so I do a lot of listening to books on tape. Usually it's some sort of personal development, or, you know, sometimes it's just podcasts or whatever, but hopefully something to get me better because, you know, 2 hours is a long time to waste on music, which I do listen to music every once in a while. Thank you so much for the hearts. I appreciate it. Thank you. It's kind of like so much gratitude. I love that you guys are here with me, and if I could give you hearts back, I totally would. You can tap the screen at the bottom by the little person to give hearts, and we'll get started here. So we're going to be talking about fear, and how it can really take over your life and consume you. One of my greatest fears is the fear of death. And it's not necessarily the pain that you would experience when you die or, oh, thank you. It's not the fear of like being injured. I don't really fear that. It's just that fear of really not knowing what's gonna happen to me after death, because we don't, as humans. Like, you know, part of my faith is I believe you live here once and you go to heaven after life. But I can remember from as a little child, like I think it was 3rd grade, I remember laying in my bed and thinking, what if this is what death is like, and I'm laying somewhere for all of eternity, and I even feel anxiety like raising up. You know, that anxiety that you get when you really fear something. Like, it could be spiders for you, it could be ghosts, it could be your job, it could be being fired, it could be the future, like, you know, because you don't know what's gonna happen. But it starts to like grow in your stomach, and when you let fear overcome you, you tend to, and I'm just speaking from experience, I'm trying to relate this as best as I can, you let it grow in you and you let it overcome you, where you feel like you are going to freak out. And I'm gonna bleep myself, you're gonna freak the bleep out. Like, it's not just freak out, it's like, I'm gonna hyperventilate, I'm gonna like freak out, I'm going to, I don't know, like, this is just like. So if you've ever felt that, tap the screen and give me some hearts, because I know that it's overwhelming. It is a panic attack, but usually, like, I feel like a panic attack is something that you ultimately can't control. And with my fear, I usually can can focus and say, it's okay, I go talk to someone, I pick up the phone, I do something to change, to take my mind off of it, so I don't have that ultimate panic attack where I feel like I'm gonna die. But it just consumes your body, it overwhelms you, it feels like, you know, you just can't, you can't function. So, the fear, have I ever had cognitive therapy? Is that kind of what you're asking? I have gone to therapy before in the past, and I think therapy is great. I think being able to actually verbalize your feelings to someone, is it like that? I don't know. I don't think so. Being able to verbalize your feelings to someone can really help. So, nothing bad about therapy at all. But I think ultimately, and if therapy is what it takes to do this, I think you should do it. But to overcome your fear, you have to approach it. And so a lot of people, when I would say, like, I would talk about having a fear of death, and it ultimately, like, I'm afraid of sharks. I don't really like spiders. I'm scared of I'm scared of heights. Sometimes, like, I get that I get up high and I'm like, oh, this is scary. But it's never that overwhelming where I can't, like, I just can't. It's never that overwhelming. Good. I'm glad this is helping you. It helps to just get your feelings out sometimes. But I never get, with any other fear, I never get to the point where I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what am I gonna do? Like, this is just horrible. I just can't, you know, that's not even close to what it feels like. But you know what I'm saying. If you've ever felt this, you know what it feels like. And some people have this with spiders, mice, you know, sharks, dogs, like, this overwhelming, like, oh my gosh, type of thing. So ultimately, it's not until a couple of days ago that I've really kind of come to the point where I can deal with thinking about dying. And I can't remember how it was worded in that book. But if you are wanting to deal with a fear, I would definitely suggest, and you only have to read a chapter of it. You don't even have to read the whole book. But read Think and Growing Rich. It's actually about obtaining wealth, but there's a part, I believe it's one of the last chapters, that it talks all about the fears that people have. Fear of poverty, fear of dying, fear of sickness, fear of, there's a couple others. It's a great book, isn't it, Gamey Granny? It's a great book. It's kind of weird because it was written right after the Depression, I believe. So the wording is kind of weird, and some of the concepts, in my opinion, I'm kind of a feminist, so some of the concepts are a little dated, and you just kind of got to be like, whatever. I know this is why because it's in this time period, that's why it's saying these things, the type of thing. So you just kind of got to ignore some of that stuff. You know, I'm truly, like, you can never, like, be a devout follower of anybody, because there's going to be some points that they live in their life or they talk about in their books or whatever that you don't completely agree with. So, anyways, basically I had to take, the part where it was talking about dying and death and the fear of dying, I had to stop the audio tape because I was in my car driving. I'm like on the way home. I'm 3/4 of the way home, and it just says, these are the symptoms of the fear of death and all this other stuff. And I literally would have gotten into a car wreck because I was getting so worked up. I started crying. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, and if you know me, if you've watched any of my other scopes, I'm pretty positive. Like, it's really hard to get me into that mode unless you talk about dying. And then I'm just like 20 seconds and I'm freaking out, man. So I think when it comes down to it, you've got to be able to approach that fear, right? If you're ever going to overcome a fear, something that really, and I'm not talking about like, I'm scared of I don't know. You know, not those, you know, those little fears. I'm talking about those fears that are just overwhelming. You have to look at it from a new perspective. And that's kind of what this book gave me. They gave me a perspective of thinking of my fear of death as I wish I could remember what it said. It's ultimately a part of life, essentially. And people have told me that before, but it was the way that it was worded was just, it's inevitable, but it's not inevitable, because I feel like that's a positive way of thinking of it. I feel like, so to me, I guess what I'm trying to say to you, to get the point across, is if you have a fear like that, if you have something that scares you out of your wits, and I'm talking about it starts in your stomach and you just feel like you can't swallow it down, and the more you think about it, the more it hurts, and the more it's scary, and the more you feel like you cannot control anything, and you're about ready to have a panic attack, and you can't help it. What you need to do is you need to find some way, or talk to someone, or I'm glad you're back. You need to look at it in a different perspective, and look at it in a different way, and the more ways you look at it, the less scary it gets. Even when you feel like you're gonna have this panic attack, like literally I was there, but now that I have that perspective, I calmed myself down, I turned it back on, and I listened to it, and it just, something in the way that the book worded it helped me calm down and see it as something that I should almost strive for, because not that I should strive for death, but just that it's gonna come, it's going to happen, it's a part of life, and it's ultimately a part of success, kind of, because at the end of life, there's this beautiful thing that you come to, and that you know, we've heard all the bad things about death. We've heard about, you know, fire and damnation. And that's kind of what the book said, that a lot of this built up anxiety is because of our historical views on what happens after death, especially when you don't follow the right religion, or when you do things that your religion doesn't agree with, or whatever. Yeah. I think if you're willing to take a glance into your fear, if you're willing to educate yourself a little bit more about it, and you're willing to look at it from a different point of view, you might realize that you might get that thing that just clicks and just makes it so it's not as terrifying, at least to the point where you feel like you can handle it, as opposed to feeling like anytime you think about it, you're gonna freak out. So again, this wasn't as concise as I like to make my Periscopes. It didn't have all these points all neatly lined up and, you know, a review and all this stuff, but I just really felt like when I had that epiphany, when I had that feeling like I can deal with this, I can talk about this subject, I can kind of overcome it, I can at least cope with it without freaking out, that I wanted to pass that along to you, and hopefully you can pass it along to somebody else. And again, if you really are having that anxiety feeling, I'd recommend at least, I think it's the last chapter of Think and Grow Rich. I think it will really benefit you, and hopefully you guys will send me a tweet, and if you do read it, and you'll let me know how it goes. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I hope that you cannot let fear overcome your life, so that you can do all the great things that you were meant to do, because I believe that we were all meant to do great things. So go out there, do some great things. Don't let fear overcome you. Don't let fear stop you from making your dreams come true. All right, have a great one. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I appreciate it. I love you all. Bye.